Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stony Acres. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about 20 plus vegetables that you can still be planting in the month of June. So every year I get people messaging me in a panic saying, hey, it's June 10th and I haven't planted my garden yet. Is it just too late? The answer to that question is no. In most areas, you can still do tons of planting during the month of June. In fact, in some gardens, that's when you do the bulk of your planting. So there's plenty of time for you to still be planting during the month of June. And so we've got a lot of stuff that we're going to cover today that you can be getting into your garden. Before we get started though, please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click that notification bell so you get notice every time I release new videos. Also make sure you go follow us over on Instagram. I would love to have you come and join us there. And make sure you stick around because I'm going to be talking to you about fall and winter gardening at the end of this video. In June? Yep, I am. So we have a free mini course. It's our year-round gardening mini course. There's a link down in the description you can click on to go check that out, but I'll talk to you quite a bit more about that at the end of the video today. All right, so let's get started, and we are going to go through and talk about all of the different plants that you can be planting during the month of June. And there really is a lot that you can still be getting in. Almost everything can still be planted during the month of June. So let's start out with greens. Now, greens are traditionally considered cool season crops. And so a lot of the, traditional things like lettuces and arugula and spinach and things like that, you're not going to be able to plant during June because it's just going to be too hot. But there are still a few greens that you can be putting in, and that includes things like Swiss chard, kale, collards, and then we have Malabar spinach and New Zealand spinach, both of which are actually warm season crops that need to be planted in June. And then there are also some lettuce varieties that we call summer crisp lettuces. So these are varieties like Nevada or Muir or Cherokee. There's a few others as well that you can plant, and they actually stand up really well to the summer heat. They don't get tip burn and they don't go bitter nearly as quickly. And so you should look into some of those as well. This isn't a sponsored video, but if you want to check out those varieties, Johnny Seeds is the place to go. And again, they're called summer crisp lettuces. Also remember that with these greens, you can be planting those either as transplants or you can direct seed those out into the garden, and it shouldn't be a problem either way. Those should do really well in June. Next, we have the tomato family. So this would include things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and tomatillos. All of those, you still have time to get planted in June. I would try and get those in as early as you can, but you still have plenty of time. The other thing is these do need to go in by transplant. So you're going to be putting tomato transplants or eggplant or peppers, all of those by transplant. Too late to do anything by seed in that family. One other thing that is in the tomato family that you can be planting directly in the garden is potatoes. So you still have plenty of time to get potatoes in. Planting in June, is going to give you 90 to 120 days before your last frost, and that will be perfect timing for a nice fall crop of those potatoes. So get some potatoes in as well. Next is the squash family, which includes all of your summer, winter squashes and your melons as well. So summer squashes, you have no real issues getting those planted in June. You've still got plenty of time. Zucchini, crookneck squash, and patapan squashes are all going to start to mature in like 60 to 70 days. So you'll just plenty of time for those. With your winter squashes, you're a little bit tighter on your time frame. Those usually take more like 100 to 120 days to mature, and so that's starting to bump into your frost zone. So get those planted just as quickly as you can in the month of June, but you still should be able to plant pumpkins and Hubbard squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash, butternut, all of those, but get them planted early during the month of June. Also, cucumbers do really well planted either by transplant or directly seeded during the month of June, and so you shouldn't have an issue there. And then all of your melon plants also can still be planted in June. But with melons, I would start thinking about shorter maturity type melons. So things like cantaloupes or icebox watermelons, things that are a little bit smaller and that mature with a little bit shorter time frame. So make sure you get all of those in, and like I say, with those, direct seeding or transplants are going to be fine during the month of June, but get them in as early as you can. Next on the list is beans. So all of your beans, whether it's green beans, pole beans, bush beans, all of those you should have no issues with. Green beans usually are starting to mature in 60 to 75 days, so you've got plenty of time to get those planted. With your dry beans, so things like pinto beans, black beans, even edamame, which is soybean, those you're starting to push the envelope on timing. So get those planted as early in the month of June as you possibly can, so that you've still got a good solid 100 to 120 days before your first frost in the fall. But again, you definitely do have time to get those planted, and those can all be direct seeded out into the garden. All of your beans can just be direct planted out into the garden, and you shouldn't have any problems with those at all. There are a few root crops that you can still plant in June. Traditionally, root crops are considered cool season crops, and so we plant them in the spring and in the fall. But if you would like to plant some beets this time of year, you should be fine. And carrots will do okay. I would go with some of the smaller varieties of carrots, like a Littlefinger or something like that, just because they take a little less overall energy. Carrots are not huge lovers of heat, but they still should be okay. Beets will do great, but carrots will do all right, but you definitely could still plant some of those during the month of June. Next on our list would be corn and okra. So okra, either by transplant or direct seeded in the garden in June, will do just fine. With your corn, you want to get your popcorn in as soon as you possibly can, because they're a little bit longer maturing. With your sweet corns, I would try and select some of the shorter maturing varieties. So look for varieties that mature between 60 to 80 days. That will make sure that you've got a good solid crop. Some of the longer maturing sweet corns, you might want to wait and try those next year, but just choose some of those shorter maturing sweet corns and you should still be able to do just fine planting those during the month of June. And the last edible plants on our list would be your herbs. So all of your annual herbs, things like basil, oregano, dill, parsley, all of those are still going to do great. All of your medicinal herbs should still have plenty of time to mature if you're planting them during the month of June. Most of these you're going to be planting with transplants, but you could also direct seed as well out in the garden. Just recognize that those are going to, have a little bit of a shorter harvest period just because you're getting a little bit late in the year. The one herb that I would recommend that you try not to plant during the month of June would be cilantro. So cilantro is a cool season herb. It likes the cool weather. And so hold off on planting cilantro until you get closer to the fall, so that it's going to mature during the fall. It just does not like heat, and it's going to bolt almost immediately for you. And so I would hold off on cilantro, but all the other annual herbs should do great planted during the month of June. And then last but not least, I want you to get a few flowers planted as well. So these would be your annual flowers, and you're going to be putting all of these in using transplants. And we're talking here about things like marigolds, zinnias, cosmos, nasturtium, all of your kind of traditional annual flowers. Get some of those planted actually out in your vegetable garden, because it's going to be a big benefit for your vegetable garden. It's going to attract pollinators, and a lot of those flowers are also going to repel some of the pesky bugs as well. And so get some flowers planted out in your garden as well. And again, we're looking here at annuals and planting by transplants. Okay, so there's your list of all the things that you can plant in June. And as you can see, there are just a ton that you can still get going. And so it's not too late. Get out there and get a garden planted. Even, well into mid or even late June, there's still plenty of time for a lot of the stuff that I talked about today to mature. And so I want you to get out there and get a garden planted. We've got a lot of craziness going on with the food supply this year, and so you really need to get a garden going, and I would just recommend that you get out there no matter how late you are and get something planted, okay? All right, before we go, I wanted to really quickly talk to you a little bit about fall and winter gardening. And why am I talking to you about fall and winter gardening in June? The reason why is because now's the time to start thinking about it. If you are planning on doing things like your brassica family plants, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, things like that in the fall, late June may be the time for you to actually be starting your transplants. And I'll link a video right up here that you can go check out that talks a little bit more about what seedlings you should be starting indoors in June. But for those of us that live in the cooler climates, 4 through 7, where we have a cold winter, now is really the time to start thinking about that fall and winter garden. You need to be planning, because a lot of us are going to be starting to plant as early as maybe August 1st. And so now is the time to learn more about fall and winter gardening. And so I've got a couple of different things for you to help you out there. One is our free year-round gardening mini course, and this is a kind of a primer course. It's about 45 minutes long, totally free. All you need to do to sign up for it is click on the link down in the description of this video, and you can go sign up for that. And that kind of gives you a little bit of a taste of what you can be doing in the fall and winter with year-round gardening. We also have coming up the first week of July our year-round gardening master course, and I'll let you know more about that as the time approaches, but that is our full-blown 5.5-hour course that we sell to help you learn more about year-round gardening, and so that's coming up as well. So if you'd like to sign up for the free course, click the link down below, and then just keep an ear out as July approaches. I'll be talking more about that master course as well. Okay, that, my friends, is all I have for you for this week. Everybody have a fantastic week. If you like this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. Click that notification bell so you get noticed every time I release new videos. We're so close to 100,000 subscribers right now. I would love it if you would subscribe, and then make sure you go follow us over on Instagram as well. Okay, thanks guys. Happy gardening.